I guess you love movies. I do too. Hi guys, and welcome back to another video on my channel. And today we're bringing back another old segment. The main one. The one that used to do so well on this channel. We are bringing back classic movie reviews today. And it just hadn't really been the time to bring it back. I hadn't really watched a movie that I thought, fit in this segment. But today we're bringing it back, and as you can see, the vest has also returned. It is boiling today. It's 31 degrees in the UK. But because I'm a professional, I'll close the window. There'll be no audio interference. However, I will be sweltering for the entirety of this video. Got a sacrifice, for my art. And talking about sacrificing for your art, we'll get on to the movie for today, and that is All That Jazz, directed by Bob Fosse, stars Roy Scheider, Leland Palmer, no, not the one in Twin Peaks, and Jessica Lange. This movie follows the day-to-day life and depravitude of a director and choreographer for a stage show and play, and it is actually based on Bob Fosse's own life. It's based off the period of time where he was directing and editing a movie called Lenny, and also bringing Cabaret, his movie from the 1970s, mid-70s, to the Broadway stage with Chicago. So this movie is what I would describe as an anti-musical. Or, when basically you get the classic archetypal musical, and it is the exact opposite of this in terms of tone. All That Jazz is a musical, but it is a lot more than that. If you think about the archetypal Hollywood musical, you think of something like Singing in the Rain. You have a starlet, from a small town in America, and they'll come to Hollywood, and it'll be tough at first, but they'll show guts, and eventually they will get their break. And they'll fall in love once again with the magic of the movies, and everything will be right with the world, and it will just be so uplifting and joyous. And however much I love Singing in the Rain, and god damn it do I love that movie, and to be honest, it has its own light and shade. It isn't complete just the cotton candy fluff, but a lot of the musicals of this period were. All That Jazz is a complete counter to that. It is the ultimate anti-musical. The main character is one of the most despicable pieces of shit I've ever seen in anything, really, in terms of a musical anyway. The guy is an alcoholic, chain-smoking, pill-popping, misogynistic. He sleeps with everyone. He's so promiscuous. He cheats on every girlfriend he's ever had. But he has this kind of feeling that he may be self-destructive in his own personal life, but he's very focused on creating good art, whether that's on stage or on screen. But this lifestyle is starting to catch up with him. His health is failing, and over the course of the movie, it becomes more and more abstract as his heart starts to give out, and he starts to realise the repercussions of the lifestyle that he's been living. And it is also a deconstruction of Hollywood and show business, the cynical underbelly of it, the depravity of it, the drug use, the alcoholism that was rife, especially in the classic Hollywood age, which this movie is really trying to show the realism of it, in kind of an absurd and over-the-top way. But this life is not all glitz and glamour, it is not all shine, and there is a lot of grime underneath, and this movie is a grimy ass movie. It's really sweaty and grimy, and everyone looks like they haven't slept for weeks. And it really is about what you'll sacrifice personally to try and be appreciated in terms of through your art as an actress, as a director. And Leland Palmer, who plays one of the many women that he's involved with, Roy Scheider's character is involved with throughout this film, and she has many moments where she's irritated by his behaviour, and she says, basically you're going to drive me insane. And it feels like a lot of people on the edge of breaking, and especially Roy Scheider's character, who is very much on the verge of not only losing his mind, but dying. This man's heart is genuinely about to give out, and as he starts to disassociate from reality, we get these more abstract sequences, and as the movie goes along, these come more and more often, and these internal feelings and fears of facing his own mortality, his own mistakes, his own regrets, the feeling like he's passed on a lot of these things to his daughter, who rarely sees him because he's so entrenched in work. But there's also a brilliant sequence with his daughter and his new girlfriend, a brilliant dance sequence that is both brilliant in spectacle to watch, the execution phenomenal, but also is kind of saddening because you feel like he's passed on this kind of love for this industry, this passion for this art form, but there's so much darkness under the surface of it that has also taken hold of him as much as the passion has. The vices that he has, you know, his daughter at one point asks him what he's taking. He says it's a mint, but of course it is not. He's taking basically every upper downer that you could possibly imagine, and by the time the third act hits, the guy is basically on his deathbed. And that is where the best parts of this movie come, when we get these bizarre, cynical and abstract dance and musical sequences. And sometimes towards the end they may overstay their welcome, but the imagery is something that won't leave you. And Roy Scheider gives a performance here which is genuinely some of the best acting I've seen in his whole career. Obviously he's great in a lot of films. He's great in Jaws specifically, everyone remembers him for that, but this might be his best and most complex performance. He's both a horrific person, a person deeply flawed, but also you have a genuine feeling of sadness for him, because when he reaches the end of the movie, he knows that this has been his own doing, you know, his own self-destruction, and kind of shows that sort of the dangers of being seduced by this life, by being seduced by show business, because at the end of the day a lot of it is superficial, a lot of it will be lauded one minute and forgotten tomorrow, and you have to have a foundation of something more secure, because fame is fleeting, but having something that genuinely matters to you, that's a foundation for general and real happiness, is much more important. Because fame, like every abusive substance, like every quick high, it leaves you empty when it vacates, and it's only a very small burst of dopamine, and the more that you become addicted to that rush, the more you'll try and find other things to fill it, and eventually destroy yourself from the outside in, and it's or the inside out even, and that's really what this movie is about. It's about short-term pleasure, trying to get appreciation from people, from critics, and people that will, you know, talk about your legacy once you're gone. Maybe that you'll be defined through your art, but there's something very simple and meaningful about being loved by people, and this character loses that in a descent into self-destruction, self-importance, and also just his substance and alcohol problems, and all that jazz at points maybe outstays its welcome in terms of the sequences can get long-winded, but it's a movie that really stayed with me. I was processing it for a while after, and a few days afterwards I was still thinking about it. It's a movie that really hits deep. It's maybe the most quintessential anti-musical ever made. It's brilliantly performed by Roy Scheider and the whole cast. The editing also is fabulous and won an Oscar, and deservedly so for that. It really is an abstract, dark, cynical deconstruction of the recesses of show business and Hollywood, and a movie that I would highly recommend to anybody that likes these sort of deconstructions and dark movies. And it's interesting if you are a fan of musicals to see, because maybe you'll hate it, maybe you'll love its take, and it's sort of like swapping around of the sort of tone. But yeah, I really enjoyed all that jazz. If you haven't seen it already, I would highly recommend it. So there you go, that is our classic movie review return. Hopefully you enjoyed the video overall. All that jazz is definitely something worth checking out if you're a fan of musicals and a fan of sort of subverting the genre. What other movies should I do in classic movie reviews? I do have a whole load on my channel that I've already done, so check those out if you haven't already, and also give me some suggestions down in the comment section below. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Goodbye.